All right, setting up. And live.
Live. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Environment Subcommittee. So we have 3 bills on our agenda. HB 173, HB 245, and HB 323. I think we'll start with, we'll save HB 245 because that is, we did discuss it some last week, but that is far and away the most complicated bill to the end of our discussion. So we will start with HB 173, Delegate Layman's bill. So Kristen, if you could tell us what this bill does.
Sure. The bill is prohibiting state employees or contractors from disposing of yard waste collected on the grounds of a state building or a state highway in a single-use plastic container. And then in addition, the bill requires that such yard waste be collected in a container that will not be discarded with the yard waste or that is compostable. And we do have a couple amendments that were sent out to the subcommittee.
Right. Could you explain DNR's amendment? Then I'll explain.
DNR's amendment exempts disposal of invasive species or nuisance plants because they do need to use the dark black trash plastic bags. And then we have another amendment that clarifies that the yard waste must be that's collected. Either it's in a container that's not discarded or it's in a container that is a compostable paper bag.
Yeah, and that second one is from me, and I spoke with Delegate Layman about it. I mean, this is based in part on testimony from Maryland Recycling Network. They were suggesting paper bags as an option, so we sort of combined that with the requirement that it be compostable, so that it would be a compostable paper bag. The idea being that paper bags, at least in some counties, are what is used to, set out yard waste, other organics. Well, generally yard waste at the curb, and also when you take the type of material that the bill deals with to a landfill for recycling. So discussion about the bill and proposed amendments.
Move the amendments.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Love. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions about the amendments?
Move the vote.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted. The bill as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any questions about the bill as amended? All right, all those in
Yes,
favor
Mr.
say aye.
Chair, if I may.
Oh, yes, Delegate Otto, sure.
Now, this is just dealing with the state buildings. It's not dealing with my home yard or.
Correct. That's
Okay.
right. State buildings or state highways.
I got you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, all those in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, bill passes as amended. I like that. Very, very, very efficient work. So that's great. Okay, now on to House Bill 323, Delegate Guidance Bill, which we heard today. Kristen or Delegate Guyton, if you want to explain this bill, and we do have an amendment reflecting how the Senate approved this.
Yes, so basically just adds the chair of the Public Service Commission to the Climate Change Commission, and the amendment also as emergency management. So that's all it does.
Great. Okay. All right. Any questions about the amendments?
Move the amendments.
Second. All right. Any questions about the amendments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Amendments passed. Bill as amended, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, bill passes as amended.
We
This
are
is great.
rolling.
I mean, 2 bills in 5 minutes. It's like very impressive. Okay. House Bill 245. Kristen, could you, I won't ask anyone to summarize the bill, and we do have Les from MDE on the call. Could I ask you this? Could you explain sort of where we left off with our discussion last week? Kristen?
Well, my notes don't tell me a lot, but I know we went over the bill. The bill's making changes to a number of MDE programs. We went over all of the fee changes, penalty changes, new regulatory provisions regarding dams. There was some questions at the end. I know Delegate Terrassa had some concerns with stream restorations and has an amendment to remove the exemptions from that currently applied to stream restoration projects from having to pay a fee for a wetlands and waterways authorization. I know the department was going to get back to the delegate on some information regarding what that fee potentially would be if those projects are charged a fee. And I believe we went over the amendments, the department's amendments last week, but I did send out a reprint copy. So hopefully that can help, to be able to see where all of those changes, there weren't a ton of changes, but where the changes take place. And I believe that's where we left off.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And also, I just will say, after we talk about Delegate Terrassa's amendment, we'll ask Les to talk about some back and forth that I know the department's had with the surface mining industry about the permit fees that they would be subject to under the bill. But before we talk about that, Delegate Terrassa, do you want to discuss your proposed amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and I'm interested to hear what MDE has to say about it. There's a lot of discussion this session about stream restoration and the need for more oversight and guardrails, and in light of that, and probably the need for there to be more done through MDE, it seemed to make sense to me that we wouldn't be waiving those fees for stream restoration projects. Just trying to get the MDE some more money to do what I think there's starting to be an expectation of.
Yeah, so Les, if you could discuss that, and also I know we had asked MDE what if they weren't exempt, what would be the fee that MDE would apply? So if you could sort of discuss the substance of the amendment as well as that specific issue.
Certainly. Good evening, everybody. Les Knapp on behalf of the Maryland Department of the Environment. We went back and reviewed this. I can provide a couple of points here. I think we do have some concerns with the amendment. I think the first and biggest one, our first concern is this would set a precedent that for a restoration project, they are typically and traditionally have been exempted from paying these types of permitting fees. This would set a precedent where this is the first type of restoration project that would be subject to a permit fee. Second, in terms of the money amount going back, these would be targeted as a basic general permit for a stream restoration project. So under current law, you would be getting $750. Under the proposed bill, that would be increased by a CPI to $980. So you're not talking about significant amounts of money. And third, and this is more of a technical issue that could certainly be corrected, is I'm not sure the amendment is introduced actually really does much in terms of an exemption, because many of these projects come in and the applicants are the state, which would be DNR, a county government, or a municipal government. There are some that are done through private contractors, the actual permit applicant, or an NGO. But there's a separate exemption for the state, counties, and municipalities further up in the bill language. That is existing law that you would also need to adjust Otherwise, you would only be having private contractors and NGOs, which is a small percentage of the proportion, actually paying the fees, and the rest would remain exempt. So set that technical reason aside, we still have concerns on the first two. Now, I think the delegate was right. We are working with her and others that are concerned on stream restoration, and I would like to believe, I think we're going to come to an agreement with respect to getting some guardrails in the law to address some of the other concerns.
Okay, Delegate Tarassa, before I ask you to, if you have any, follow-up comments. Les, your first point about restoration projects being generally exempt. So you're saying this would make an exemption to that exemption for stream restoration projects. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Can,
Yeah, Delegate Tarassa.
can you speak to what those other types of restoration projects are?
Things like, well, living shorelines would be a good example. There's some other types of habitat, but specifically I can talk on the water side. Living shorelines would be the other biggest example.
So they're just those two, or I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like what kind of precedent this is. If this is just a one-off along with living shorelines, which I'm not sure why we would. I mean, it seems like that might be a fee you don't want to waive either if you're going to need to do some review of these.
I think there's a balance there that we want to encourage and incentivize these types of projects based on their benefits. They obviously do need to be done right, which I think is part of the ongoing discussion we're having. But any other type of water quality or restoration project could also fall under this. Those are the two biggest, but like any type of water quality updates, so that could be some certain other stormwater restoration or mitigation projects. Stormwater management can sometimes qualify. It just depends on what their primary goal or effect is. Certain types of discharge permits where maybe you're removing nutrients from a discharge to improve water quality could also count. I could get back to you with others.
Yeah, I mean, can you help me understand, like, what wouldn't most of those involve stream restoration?
Well, it would depend. There's a lot of different ways you could do that. I mean, stream restoration is kind of its own bundle. So living shoreline is obviously very different. That would not fall under what we consider and go through the process for stream restoration. Certain water discharge improvements is the same way, because you're not necessarily stream restorations targeting typically the stream bed, potential runoff, erosion, the floodplain, whereas some of this others is much more directed or specific. And I can get you some further, and if you want some further details, I can have our Water and Sciences Administration do a little more of a write-up there.
Okay, and then I guess the other question is, you were speaking to state and county projects, and I forget what the other
Municipal,
local
local government and state.
Are there other areas in the law where the counties and the cities have their permitting fees waived, but private organizations don't?
There could be, yes.
Because I know a lot of times the counties would argue that they should be exempt, as another governmental agency.
So another primary example would be wastewater treatment plants are publicly owned, are exempt from a lot of permitting. I believe the private ones would be subject to the permitting fees if it's privately owned. And that, could be the same for the stream restoration.
Okay.
Right now, everyone is exempt if you're doing stream restoration, because that's a mitigation restoration type of a project.
Okay, I see that Delegate Ruth has a question. I think I'll reserve for now.
Okay, Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm not sure if this is relevant or not, but just kind of following up on that questioning, are the living shoreline projects also primarily the governmental entities doing that?
There, I think it's a lot more dispersed. So you do have, I would say, more private and also more NGO activity directly there.
Thank you. And on either, but I guess more on the stream restoration, in terms of with the new like pay for success contracts and the Conservation Financing Act that we passed, which I think is my question is that likely to get more of these being done by private entities, and how would that play into this?
I will offer very broadly, I think it will ultimately serve as an incentive, but I would want to get back to you after some consultation with our financing people on that one. So let me get back to you there.
Thank you.
Okay, Delegate Tarasa, any further discussion of your amendment at this point?
Oh, I think Delegate Foley has something I guess I'd like to hear
Sure.
where other folks
Okay.
are on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Delegate Foley.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out where this amendment goes. And I'm trying to jump between screens, so bear with me. Let me put this. So you said it's line 20 on page 1?
I think that's the
Purpose
bill
paragraph.
summary.
It's in the summary.
Well, that's the first part of it. Kristen, maybe if
I'm trying to figure it out. And
Yeah.
truthfully, I did not look at these amendments ahead of time. I've got them up on my screen, but I'm
Sure.
trying to jump between. I can't figure out where it goes. That's my question.
Yeah,
That
so
was-
the substance is on page 14.
Okay.
In
with the
lines
original bill.
in
Yeah.
in the bill. So what you were referring to initially in page 1 was just a purpose paragraph update, but
Oh, I got it.
yes,
Okay.
but on page 14 of the bill, under existing law, there is an exemption for stream restoration projects from having to pay these fees, and that's starting in line 17. And that the stream restoration exemption is being removed by this amendment. So in other words, they would then be subject to wetland fees, maybe.
Okay. What did you say? It was on page 14.
Page 14 of the bill.
Okay. I'm getting there. Oh, there it is. Okay. Page 14. Sorry for this. I'm just having trouble like with my computer. Okay. And where did you say it is, Kristen?
At line 17.
Line 17. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay. So Delegate Terrazas' amendment would remove that, would remove 17, would
The
remove that.
fee exemption for stream restoration
Correct.
would be removed by Delegate Terrazas' amendment.
Right. So it would remove the word stream restoration.
Right. Because it's in a list of other exemptions.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't move the whole exemption. It just removes stream restoration.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, substituting vegetative. That's what I got confused. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, that's just
It's gonna
making the word
capitalize it.
capitalized,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, you could Foley, or you?
Yeah, I'm good. I do have a question about this though, substantively.
Sure.
Since there is a big stream restoration bill that Delegate Terraza is bringing, wouldn't it be better to address something like this in there, maybe? I mean, it seems like that's the opportunity. I mean, that's what seems like where you're going with this and your discussions back and forth with Les. And I'm just wondering if that might make more sense.
I mean, go ahead, Delegate Tarasa. Go ahead.
I mean, it's certainly a discussion we could have then instead of now. I think it sort of depends on the will of the subcommittee. I mean, I certainly think part of the issue is whether we want to be incentivizing stream restorations as much as we are. And I think this gives that advantage to stream restorations, but if the rest of the subcommittee members prefer that discussion as part of that bill, and I know Delegate Love has a bill also relating to stream restoration. Certainly, it really depends on what others think.
Yeah, I mean, as Delegate Trust said, it's really the will of the subcommittee. You know, it sounds like there are a couple other potential vehicles to put this in. This is certainly one.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, may I
Sure.
follow up? So this is more discussion than a question, but you know, I know what I mean. I'm aware of your bill, Delegate Terraza, and I know, you know, what you're trying to do with stream restoration. I have to say that I've also seen stream restoration projects that are pretty good. And I think, you know, it's more important to kind of define what is good and what isn't than to try and exempt, you know, and to take away the exemption for all stream restoration projects. I just think that, like I said, I just visited some a couple months ago in Montgomery County that I would hate to have made. I don't think they would have gotten done if they didn't, you know, if they had to pay all the permits, because as Les said, you know, it was the government, it was the county government that did these projects. So that's my preference. I would rather see, you know, some guardrails, to use Les's term, and some other provisions around, you know, defining what stream restoration is, and then getting rid of the bad practices so that we can incentivize the good practices. That's my opinion.
Okay, Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify, I think that I think, you know, and I'm also one of the people working on stream restoration issues. You know, we definitely recognize there are some good projects, and I think all of us want to make sure we incentivize those good projects and put guardrails on to make sure that the bad projects become good projects. But I don't see this, and I'm not offering an opinion one way or another on doing it in this bill, but just I don't see it as trying to disincentivize the stream restoration so much as it is trying to make sure there's in line with the spirit of this bill to ensure there's funding to adequately, you know, monitor and oversee the stream restoration projects. Would that be fair to say, Delegate Terraza?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I was just sort of responding to Mr. Knapp's statement about you know, being clear that we want to encourage these. But I also thought I heard Mr. Knapp say that this wouldn't be a big increase. I thought you were saying it would go from, and I may have misunderstood completely, but it would go from like 700 something to 900 something. So this is really like a $250 increase in what are hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of projects. Did I understand that right, Mr. Knapp?
Close. It would be
Close,
the
good.
general permit. So right now it's 0, and assuming, and hopefully if our departmental bill passes, it would be $980 under our new language if you were to remove that exemption. So it's about close to $1,000 increase from what they're paying now, which is nothing.
Okay, and on these projects, it's probably at like 0.5%. I mean, it's a pretty low percentage of what these projects cost to do. But I mean, to everybody's point, like, I'm happy to have this as discussion as part of the other discussion. I mean, I think we really need to think about stream restoration. We don't have time to get all into the tons of details that a few of us on this call have learned about stream restoration at this point. And really talk about like sort of how we're funding it. I just don't want us to come back later and say, well, we didn't change, we just approved these fees. We're not going to relook at it. And I would hope that the subcommittee would consider that conversation an open one to have when my bill is introduced, or it's introduced, when we have that hearing.
Yeah, I mean, Delegate Terraza, I would certainly, you know, I'd be good with, if you choose to defer consideration of your amendment to this bill, House Bill 245, then I'm fine with saying, yeah, it should be something that we take up when the subcommittee considers your stream restoration bill. Sure.
Okay, if that's the case, then I can withdraw that and we can have that discussion later.
Okay. Okay. All right, sounds good. And Les, the other thing, the one other thing, and correct, and remind me if I'm missing any other sort of point of contention, that we should discuss. But the one, that I know of is the back and forth you've had with the surface mining industry about their permit fees. So could you review where we are on that?
Sure, and that is, unless somebody has not raised issues with us, that's the only other major point of contention I'm also aware of that we haven't addressed. And we've had ongoing discussions. I think they have raised concerns with the proposed increases, specifically with the permitting fee, and particularly because it was a per acre charge and there was a cap. We initially proposed removing the cap, and our thought process was we wanted to be fair across the board, that, in aggregate, a smaller company actually pays more than a larger company if you're just doing it on with that cap. So making it a straight per acre fee would be fairer. Now, we listened to some of the concerns that they have raised, and where we kind of ended it, and we did submit this kind of last offer. I don't believe they are happy with it. They can certainly speak on their behalf, but we put in that we would accept a cap for, we tried to segregate it to where it's if an operator has 5 or less acres, so they're really, really small, it would just be a straight permit fee of $120. However, if they're 5 acres or more, we would reduce the per acre cost down to $65 per acre and have a cap of $13,000, so that no matter how big you are, once you hit that cap, you're done.
Okay, and Les or Kristen, could you refer us to the page in the original bill that covers this?
Yeah, it's, give me a minute, it's towards the back where I think page 38, 39. So, surface mining, license and permit fees actually begins on page 35. Page 35.
But I think the permitting fees themselves, the ones that are at issue here, are on pages 38 and 39.
38, 39, yep.
Okay.
I know 39, line 11, has, with, the fee and the cap that was initially being, taken out.
Okay. Well, Les, all right, so you said that you've been back and forth with the industry. You sort of presented what you thought was the best offer MDE could. Did you say you've heard back from them on that, or?
I don't believe that they are happy with that offer. We would be, with that offer, we would be giving up about $600,000 of the anticipated revenue from our initial proposal, which was the $50 per year per acre, but no cap. So, this does, I think, give some flexibility, but it's not totally where I think they would like to be at.
Okay, and Delegate Terrazzo, before calling you, I'll just say, so one thing subcommittee needs to consider is, since I guess the industry would like a variation, I guess, of what Les, you're saying MDE has proposed as sort of your final counter offer, since they probably would like to present to us an alternative. Do we want to wait for that or not? So anyway, but with that, Delegate Terrazzo.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have a couple question. So are there small surface mining companies? Maybe I don't know what surface mining is.
So surface mining this is non-coal surface mining. So we're not talking about coal in any way, shape, or form. This is like sand pits, stone quarries, granite.
This is quarries. Are there small quarries?
Absolutely, yes. You can
That are
have a quarry of
that
a
are
couple
operational?
acres all the way up to very big, large facilities that cover 200 or more acres.
I mean, but this is like not, I mean, mining is not a mom and pop business.
Typically, no, even a small mine, requires from MDE's perspective, a lot of oversight and regulation, but there are some minority owned businesses on the mining side, and some of those can be very small, but I wouldn't classify any of these as mom and pop.
And do we know how much this would change a fee for any of the mines, surface mines out there? Like the difference between what it is now and what you're proposing?
Yes, we've worked that in, and again, these have not been adjusted for many years, and competitively with adjoining states, including West Virginia, our surface mine fees are relatively at the bottom end, and even with these increases, we're still going to be kind of in the middle range. And I will note, some individual farmers can have quarries, operational quarries. They could on their farmland take a couple of acres and convert that over. So that's on the small side.
Okay, I'm not really comfortable with changing it from what was proposed to be, I mean, just as for discussion purposes. I think we should leave it as proposed, especially if they're not satisfied anyway. And I'm not clear, I mean, I don't know what the difference, like if you looked at the various mines and said, okay, with the amendment and with the bill, with the amendment, with the bill, without the amendment, what the difference is in terms of money that you would get in to the department.
Well, I guess,
So
well, go ahead, Les.
I would just say, I think net, we would lose from the original proposal about $600,000
With what you had most recently proposed.
with the most recent proposal that we submitted. There would be a decrease from our original proposal, about $600,000. It would give some flexibility, some relief to the larger companies, not as far, I think, as the advocates would like to have. And we have been critical about trying to protect the smaller companies and make it in an equitable scale.
Unless, I mean, does the impact of your what you would offer to the industry, does it have the net impact of increasing fees for smaller mines? Or does it hold those stable and decrease them for the larger ones?
So it would actually decrease slightly with our proposal. If it was moved from $50 per acre, and there would just be a straight $120 fee. In some instances, it would decrease it mostly. It would be a very de minimis increase, maybe for certain really small ones. But overall, they're largely in aggregate. They're going to be held harmless and maybe a slight reduction. With the proposal, I think 18 of 45 sites would benefit from the cap reduction and the fee increase from where we are now. So
From where we are now. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so just last point, I mean, it sounds like it's a lot of work that MDE does to regulate these, and I am uncomfortable reducing that from what they proposed, but that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would tend to agree with Delegate Terraza on this, that, I don't know why, especially since they're not, if this would make it go, if this would make their opposition go away, I would feel differently. Otherwise, in the union movement, we used to call it bargaining against ourselves. So I tend to agree with Delegate Terraza that, but I have a question. So you said, Les, that there were 18 to 45 sites. I was trying to follow the conversation. The 18 to 45 sites, are those the small sites?
No, the ones that would benefit most from our proposal that we submitted would be the larger.
Well, wait a minute,
sites.
wait a minute. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can we call one like the compromise we proposed, and then the original proposal you submitted is different, right? So when you said our proposal we submitted, the compromise or
Yes, sorry.
Okay,
The
okay.
compromise proposal would primarily affect the largest operators, and specifically Cheney, Martin Marietta, and York Building Products would be the main recipients. There would be some benefits potentially towards your some of the larger mid-sized companies, but that's where most of this reduction would come from.
Okay, but the 18 to 45 sites, those are big or small or
Those are
medium?
big,
Those are big.
the big ones, yes.
And do you have any idea how many smaller ones that would fall within the, would you say 5 acre? Do you have any idea of that?
I will have to get that number.
Well, that's okay. That's
back.
okay. I'm not that interested in the compromise. I was just curious. But we're talking about an effect on 18 to 45 big sites. It sounds like they're owned by like really big corporations. So I would agree with Delegate Terraza. I think if this doesn't make their opposition go away, my opinion is why do it?
Okay,
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
sure. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is surface mining, so I assume it has a big impact on the environment. Is that correct when you're digging up to quarry for things?
Yes, so
Yes.
obviously when we permit them, there's a lot of upfront actions that mines have to take and a lot of oversight that MDE provides to try to minimize those impacts. And then once a mine a quarry is finished, there is reclamation work to be done to try to convert it back to some other use.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was trying to get at. So there is a lot of work that MDE has to do to ensure that it minimizes the impact on the environment. And so there is a fair amount of cost to you, correct?
Yes, these are large, complicated facilities to oversee. Even a smaller mine can entail significant work and hours on site.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And then just to clarify your compromise, and I got a little confused and I apologize. So I know you're you had a cap, but it's bigger than the cap that's in the bill. But I think you said you were changing it from a per acre to like a flat. Is that correct? Or did I misunderstand?
So that's partially correct. So trying to find on our compromise position, we said, okay, if you're a really small actor, 5 acres or less, then we're going to get rid of the per acre fee and just charge a flat fee of $120 for permitting. If you're more than 5 acres, then the cap is still there, per acre cost, and the cap is there, but we increase the cap.
So, but if they're not paying per acre, then I mean, the per acre fee would have seemed to me to be an incentive to try to be as careful as possible to minimize the amount of disturbance. Does that sound reasonable?
That could be an incentive, yes.
So, I mean, I agree with Delegates Terrassa and Foley. I think that we should go with the original proposal. I mean, your original bill, not the compromise. Particularly as Delegate Foley said, if they don't like the compromise, and this is going to take $600,000 away from the department, and you have a lot of work to manage these sites, and we want to make sure that MDE has the resources to protect the environment at these sites. So I would agree that we should go with the original bill.
Okay. All right, Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Les, you mentioned states around us. Offhand, do you know what their fee structure is? And if not, that's fine. I'm just curious.
When you mean structure, are you more referencing amounts or how they charge?
Amounts.
amounts. So I can get you a chart of the amounts. I don't have them off the top of my head, but we do have a chart prepared. We can get that to you if you want.
Sure, that'd be great. And then second, just to make sure I understand, this is only when they are applying for a permit to expand, a modified permit to expand an already existing operation, correct?
It's two different types of permits that are in question. One is an annual permitting fee that is charged, and again, that covers the costs of us monitoring and overdoing it. There's a separate fee permitting that we also adjusted in this similar manner for expansions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Delegate Terraza.
So, Mr. Knapp, what I thought I heard you say earlier was that our fees are significantly below other states, and that this brings us sort of more into the middle of the pack. Is that true for this fee as well?
I believe it's true for all of the fees that we are talking about here, yes.
Thank you.
I'll provide the chart to the whole subcommittee so you can kind of see how they assess and charge the fees. I think varies a fair bit, but we can give you the amounts, and that's kind of the measure we've been looking at.
Okay. Les, I mean, since the industry hasn't responded to your compromise, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you prefer then, absent this compromise, to go to sort of default back to what you had originally proposed? Or the compromise, or?
I think we would be comfortable falling back to our original proposal. We've indicated we're always willing to continue discussions, but at this point.
Yeah, okay. All right, so it seems like then the question for the subcommittee is, do we want to just stick with what's in the original bill? Or do we want to get further information? I think the industry would probably be submitting an amendment to us, is my guess, if we wait until next week. Or so do we just want to go with what is in the original bill, or hold for further discussion? So let me just okay, Delegate, I was just going to say, by show of hands, who would like to move forward with the provisions as the original bill? Maybe just by show of hands. Okay, Delegate Love, Delegate Terraza, Delegate Ruth. Am I missing? Delegate Ruth, Delegate Terraza, Delegate Love,
Guyton.
Delegate Foley. Okay,
Foley.
so that's
Guyton and Foley.
Delegate Guyton. You have your hand up too. Okay, got it. Okay, so that seems to be that's the majority of the subcommittee. So then, we'll just keep the mining provisions as they are in the bill. So
Mr. Chairman, I think we're rushing this on that. They should have time to respond in some fashion, and we need to look at what these mining operations are providing to the citizens of Maryland. Every road we build, every home we mitigate from flood situations, they're providing the materials, basic materials that we're going to need available at a reasonable cost of transportation.
Okay, well, Delegate, so you're saying you would like us to postpone a final vote on this bill?
Till next week and take a look.
Till next week. Okay. So, are you saying you would like us to hold the bill for a week?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I'll honor that. Delegate Ruth.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it doesn't apply now, but I was just going to say my understanding is they did have a chance to respond. But I guess it doesn't matter at this point. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we will hold the bill. This is the one issue that we need to resolve before moving it. So we will do that next Wednesday. And I think that's it for subcommittee business. Anything for the good of the order? Delegate Foley?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is not the good of the order. I just have a question back on this bill. I hope Les
Sure.
hasn't left. I hope he just turned off his camera. There he is. So there is, my understanding is there is an departmental amendment to this bill. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that, so we're looking next week, we're looking at this bill with the departmental amendment and that's, there may be something from the mining people, there may not be, but that's what we're looking at next week. Is that right, Chris?
That's right. And I'm sorry,
Okay.
we didn't, I mean, I guess there are, yes, there is a departmental amendment. I guess it is reflected in the reprint, which was sent out. And Les, are they,
It's what was discussed last week. It just, I put
Okay.
it into, so we could have a reprint copy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so, but you're right. I mean, we would have to approve the department's amendment before moving on the bill.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Delegate Otto.
I still have a little bit on the bill too. The dam provisions, I'd like to know a little more who's gonna come under that, the fees and registration you have there for that. If you can clarify that for me, Les.
All right, Les, can you address that?
Sure. I can do it kind of broadly here, and then if you want to have me get a little more information for next
Yeah, I'd
week.
appreciate that too.
So this would cover all private, state-owned, and local government-owned dams. So this would mean that there are some state-owned dams, particularly with DNR, MDOT. It would also cover county municipal dams, and Mako and memo have reviewed this and are okay with those provisions. And then it would cover the private dam owners, and all the money would go back towards private dam safety.
Now, you're talking about like a farm pond, a dam that created a farm pond that's collecting surface water, or?
Not in many instances, no. So
That's what I'm concerned
Right.
to clarify.
There are 557 registered dams in the state right now that, under a multi-step process, have to go through and meet certain characteristics to be called dams. Not every berm on a pond, and I grew up on a farm with one of these, that you would call it a dam in common usage, but under the legal term for the state, it doesn't meet the definition of a dam. Those aren't affected, but there are some, farm ponds that do have dams that meet the legal requirements. So this would provide some money for them that, if they get into trouble, to help repair.
That's what I'd like to clarify, what
Okay.
comes into that, so. Thank
Certainly.
you.
Okay, so Les, if you could go with Delegate Otto before next Wednesday's meeting. Okay, Delegate Terrassa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just, if we're going to be reconsidering the fees for the surface mining, maybe Mr. Knapp can provide whatever information he has about the change in the fees for like various surface mines, or the 11 that you talked about, or whatever that is. Just if you could provide that to us before our next vote.
Yeah, so sort of a schedule of, to the extent you could come up with a schedule of the impact of I guess, if you're in Delegate Terrassa, you're talking about as in the original bill, right?
In the original bill versus the proposal that MDE has, or we're not considering that anymore. We're just waiting for an industry one.
Yeah.
So I don't know which one I don't know where we are on that, but I just don't want to be in a situation where we're voting on numbers that, sound like they could be high, but maybe aren't, or we don't know what they are.
Okay.
I'm not articulating this well, so I don't know if anybody else thinks we need some information, but I see Delegate Ruth with her hand up, and maybe she can translate me to you.
Delegate Ruth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following up on Delegate Terrassa's question, if the surface mining companies come in with a proposal and there's time before the next subcommittee meeting, if we could get any kind of analysis of the cost of that and how that would impact the various companies. Would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and okay, no,
An MDE.
a request. Yeah, an MDE, Les, would you be in a position to provide a sort of compare, if the mining industry does come in with a proposal to sort of do a comparison of the impact of their proposal versus what you're proposing in House Bill 245?
If they can get us a proposal fairly quickly, like say by, close of business tomorrow, we can take
Okay.
a couple of days and try to crunch
Okay.
those numbers.
All right. And also, Delegate Taras, I know at one point in your discussion with Les, you were saying, could MD provide examples of other exempt activities, I guess other exempt restoration activities under current law? Would you still like that?
I mean, I think that'll be more relevant. Like, I wouldn't mind that information, but I don't know that we need it as a subcommittee
Okay,
till we get to that conversation.
maybe for our
Yeah.
later discussion then. Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
sure. Okay, all right. Well, let me just say, it would be really good if we move this bill next week. So let's resolve discussion, on HB 245 next week, in addition to any, other things that we may take up. Okay, anything else? All right, well, thank you. See you next Wednesday. Okay.
Happy